Okay, so why don't you start by introducing yourself real quick?
Okay, I'm Miles. I make music under the name Playboy Smooth. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Awesome. Um, do you have like a particular instrument that's your main instrument, or are you just kind of, equally all over the place?
Very equally all over the place. I think if anything, maybe the keyboard, but even then, it's more like sound design than being that proficient at playing the keys or playing the drums or bass or whatever it is. It's more just mangling things and making them work.
Yeah, okay. Um, do you have like a main um style you would call your music overall?
No, it's just I think if it has to like fit into anything, maybe just like left of center hip hop beats, things of that nature. But it's got a wide range of really ambient, noisy things that I still do under Playboy Smooth, and then stuff that's more like put together, straightforward beats and things of that nature.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely noticed a lot of that kind of, as you said, left to center influence in the performance that you did. Um and speaking of that performance, you had a lot of stuff kind of set up around you as well. Do you want to kind of quickly walk us through what your setup there was?
Sure. It was actually it's a lot simpler than it looks. That big, like spaceship looking thing is, I'm actually only using four of the pads on it to control the little SP404 sampler that I have. And then, yeah, just tried to make it kind of as stripped down as possible. The little keyboard thing in the beginning was just using the sequencer of the keyboard and real basic. But yeah, that was just the combination of those two things really. So yeah, that the spaceship looking thing is really fancy and can do a lot of incredible stuff, but I'm just using it as a MIDI controller. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Do you have kind of like a dream piece of gear that you really want to obtain for some reason, whether it's, like just a collection piece, or whether it's like you love the functionality of it or the sound or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because I'm trying to get out of the mentality of thinking that I need anything else, but there's always like, I don't know, like a Fender Rhodes, I think is hard to go wrong with, something of that nature. Um, and then also, I forget, it's like the Yamaha C70 or something. It's one of the earlier synthesizers that like kind of mimicked strings.
Mm.
Like it's an old, yeah, a very old synthesizer, and they're very coveted. That would probably be something. But even then, I think that I'm just trying to get myself out of that mindset. But yeah, I couldn't say no to a Rhodes. I think that's something that I've always loved. Because you
Mhm.
end up like sampling those sounds or hearing those sounds, and there's something that's like so harmonically vibrant just about the fact that it's just amplified metal essentially. It's really really gorgeous.
Is there a specific roadblock that you find yourself running into when it comes to creating music? And have you found like any way past it when it comes up?
Yeah, I think I try to fool myself into um, when I got a good system of like writing, I'll definitely try to convince myself I need to change it. So instead of just like grinding out something that I've already like worked through for a while, as far as just like the system, like for the performance that I did, I was taking sounds, putting them to a tape loop, and then putting them directly into the sampler, and not really giving myself a lot of time to put it into the computer or to do anything like that. I think sometimes I'll convince myself I need to for some reason, and that is, I think, a roadblock. I continually get in the way of myself with stuff, be it like creating enough space so that I can move, freely, or whatever the obstacle is. I've gotten better, I think, in the recent like months of just owning that and being like, this is a mentality that I'm doing to kind of like self-sabotage essentially. So
Mhm.
trying to, yeah, just be more honest with myself and be like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. This is working fine. And I think it's easy to get overwhelmed and think about, compare yourself to somebody else's music or somebody else's process, and get lost kind of in that, as opposed to like being honest with what's working with you in the moment. And I think unfortunately it comes from just consumerism. you
Yeah.
know, because you're like, if I just had that, things would be smoother, you know. And I think that as musicians, we fall into these traps of, you know, that there's another piece of gear, there's something, there's a bunch of great memes about making fun of that mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially because these days, a lot of incredible high quality gear is so well, relatively cheap compared to like how it used to be and everything.
Hmm.
It kind of always feels like, oh man, I really want to get that because like, oh, it's not that expensive, but then you feel like, oh, I can't do anything until then.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest lie that we tell ourselves, is just kind of like, well, you know, once that happens, then things will start like flowing for me. And I think that is a way that as musicians we just kind of get in our own way, and just as opposed to doubling down on what's already in front of us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. Is there one thing that you like, one piece of musical advice you want to pass on to anyone kind of starting to get into music and messing around with like home recording and stuff like that?
I think it's that, try to find like whatever I think, kind of going back to what we were just saying, of like whatever you do have at your disposal, like learn that really well. And
Mm.
that's something that I've heard a million times and do kind of stick to. The sampler that I have, the SP404, I come back to that constantly because I know the workflow of it, because I just enjoy the textileness of just smashing buttons feels good. And I think that whatever it is that you have, just continue to hone that. Um, you know, as boring as that can be, a lot of times, you know, if you, for a long, long time, I just had a guitar when I was a lot younger, and it was really uninspiring. And then as soon as I got a loop station, I was like, oh, well, now, you know, this lended itself to like learning, you know, just more music and being able to play more and being able to like write riffs and things of that nature. And then, you know, so I think that kind of sparked the idea. Well, you know, it proved that when I got this thing, I was able to get better. I was able to level up. But I think to kind of stray away from that mentality and just double down on what you have, because in the long run, it'll serve you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice right there.
Yeah.
I knew someone a while back who worked at a recording studio, and he was talking about like when he was just getting into like recording other bands and stuff like that. He would buy like a piece of rack mount gear,
Hmm.
preamps, reverb, like whatever. But he would learn that gear so heavily because it was expensive. And it was
Sure.
expensive to get something else. So he would, read the manual front to back. He would learn it intimately, try it on all sorts of different instruments and situations. But then as soon as like plugins started becoming a thing, he never really did that with plugins because plugins are just so cheap and they
Hmm.
feel much more disposable, much less tangible
Yeah.
than like a piece of rack mount gear or something like that.
Yeah. And I think because of the it like existing in the physical realm, um, it's easier to kind of know it more intimately and have an intimate relationship with it. You know, you're physically taking it places where it's physically living in your room. And I have the same issues. Like I have Reason, and I was so stoked to, you know, get the newest version of Reason because it's like something that I've used off and on for years and years and years. And I find myself like still coming back to like my 4 track and still coming back to, you know, just physical pieces of gear.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. All right. Yeah. Any final words that you wanna say?
Um, I don't know. Big shout out to Corvallis Experiments in Noise. Those are a good group of friends that have been doing a lot of weird things in Corvallis for a while. And I think that the pandemic is definitely taking a hit on all music in general, and especially the noise of things. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I really appreciate your invitation and appreciated the challenge to do something. You know, it was kind of a feat that I hadn't done before, and yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. We were super stoked to have you. Um, where can people find you online?
I post most of my things on Instagram. If you just search Playboy Smooth on Instagram, and I also have a Bandcamp as well, and then a YouTube that essentially just has the same videos from Instagram. So if that's your platform of choice, that would definitely be the thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you.